Welcome to another edition of Boiler Bulletin. Where we last left off, we talked about the definitions of the three things you'll see in the grade book, which was formative assessment, summative assessment, and final exam. If you haven't watched that yet, I would highly recommend watching that video before you dive into this one. We're also providing a QR code for the evidence-based grading handbook that will give you all the information you would need to know for a deeper dive into how grading works at BBCHS. I'm going to give you a brief overview that hopefully gives you a better understanding of what we believe in here in terms of grading and what you can expect in terms of how we calculate semester grades. So first thing I want to talk about is the idea of point accumulation versus evidence-based grading. So in a traditional system, like many of you went through and I went through when I went to BBCHS, the grade book was really based on a number of points. And so you might have an assignment that was worth 25 points. You might have scored a 20, which would give you an 80% on the assignment. And then over the course of time, points accumulate, and the whole course might be worth 500. Let's say you get 422 out of 500. You'd end up with an 84% in the course. And really, in terms of determining a grade, there's nothing wrong with that. What we found, though, is that it left us hungry for more knowledge. When we just look at points, we don't know exactly which skills the students are acquiring and which ones they aren't. We don't know where to provide extra help. We don't know where to provide enrichment. And so we were really wanting something that was skill-based, that would give us information on specifically how to differentiate, how to intervene, and how to enrich on specific skills for students. So we opted to go to an evidence-based grading model. So what you'll see here is an example of one of our rubrics, and our teachers have spent countless hours sitting together, debating, looking at state standards, and coming up with rubrics that have 4 levels of learning, with a 4 being equivalent to an A, a 3 being a B, a 2 being a C, and a 1 being an F. So we really want to know where students are at skill by skill, so that, again, we can provide services for students. So we opted to go with an evidence-based grading model at BBCHS. Okay, so that's great. It does create some challenges in Infinite Campus. I want to help explain those. And that being said, it's not perfect. We're always looking to get better. But this is where we're at today. So if a student gets a 4, that's the A category. And in the grade book, it's really easy to calculate. 4 out of 4 gives you that 100%, which very clearly is an A. Now we start running into some tricky calculations here. So if a student receives a B, which on our rubric is a 3 out of 4 total, the grade book is just a big calculator. So it's going to spit out a 75%, which in traditional models is a C. But in our model, we want that to represent a B. So we had to create a band of 2.5 to 3.49 to represent our B. So all of those numbers would round to a 3, which over the course of a body of a work, if all the work rounds to a 3, we want students to receive a B on their report card. And so we had to adjust our percentage bands to match those numbers. So if you look at a B, you're really looking at a 62.5 all the way up to an 87.49. And so again, we're trained, if we see a 65% in the grade book, we're thinking our student is in big danger of failing a course. And in our system, really that's a 2.5, which shows a body of work somewhere between a C and a B range. And then we just use rounding rules again to determine grades. And so the rest of the grades are displayed on a table here that I can walk you through. So again, we're really using the same rules. It's all rounding rules. 3.5 or higher is going to round to an A. We have our B range that I just explained. We want a 2 to a 2.49 to be a C. We kind of cut the C and D in half. We don't have an academic D on our rubric, but it is, we did have a group of students who weren't quite at a C level, but also weren't at that F level. They're a combination of the two. So we have an academic D that can be calculated at the very end. So it's kind of the lower half of the C level. And then again, anything below a 1.49 would round to a 1, which would indicate an F on the grade book. So here are the percentages corresponding with those numbers. And again, because the grade book is one big calculator, we had to do some different calculating on the back end to make sure that Infinite Campus was giving students the grade that their body of work would suggest they've earned. So how does this all calculate into a semester grade? So I kind of just took a snippet of what a grade book might look like. So again, we have our formative category, which again is quizzes, smaller chunks of dipsticks of knowledge. These are things that'll happen 8 to 10 times a semester. We have our summative assessments. That's like a unit test. That'll happen anywhere between 2 and 5 or 6 times a semester. We have our final exam, which is a one-shot exam. So if you look at a body of work, we'll look at the formative category. Let's say a student takes 5, they're a 3.22, 3.4, and the grade book's gonna automatically go and average that out to a 2.8. The summative category, they have a 3, a 2, and a 3, averages to a 2.6, and they got a 3 on their final. There's no need to calculate anything there. If you take your formative assessment, which is 20% of the grade, times your 2.8, plus your summative assessment, 70% of the grade, times your 2.6, plus your final exam, 10% of the grade, times your 3, it's going to give you a 2.78, and then you simply refer back to the table that we just discussed to determine the grade for the semester. So again, you'll see percentages and letters that correspond to these numbers in the grade book, and I wanted to let you know I understand that if you see a 70% or a 60%, that could be alarming, and then you're seeing a different letter, you're seeing a B, and you don't quite see the corresponding there. You don't quite see the connection there between the B and the percentage, and I wanted to take some time to explain that to you. We'd love to explain this more, so if you have further questions, please leave them in the survey. We'll provide a QR code at the end of the video so that you can provide us feedback. And again, this is our philosophy of evidence-based grading. We believe in measuring the mastery of skills, and really what that allows us to do is go back skill by skill, student by student, to intervene or enrich where we see fit. Thanks for tuning in to another edition of Boiler Bulletin, and we'll see you next week.